Syria. Most people, I don't think, get any idea. He says now that ISIS territory has been overrun and the group has been mostly destroyed, we can leave. In Washington, this was very controversial, the prospect of American troops leaving yet another combat theater on the other side of the world. People don't like that here. James Carafano is the Heritage Foundation's Vice President for Foreign Policy and Defense Studies, and he joins us tonight. Mr. Carafano, thanks for coming on.
You bet.
So you would think, you know, the president, and I will say in his defense, he said we want to beat ISIS, we want to take away the territory that they control. He did it, and good for him. So can't we just declare victory and bring our guys back?
Well, it depends, right? It starts, but what is our interest in Syria? First of all, it's not having a peaceful Syria. Matter of fact, we don't give a damn about Syria. If you think about it, the Assads have been our enemies like forever. What does it matter, right? So we don't really care about Syria per se. So what do we care about? So one, we kicked ISIS's butt. What we'd hate happening is we walk away and ISIS just comes back again and reoccupies. That'd be bad. We don't want Iraq and Jordan to be destabilized. So we'd hate if Syria's problem kind of spilled over and destabilized countries were trying to build a firebreaker from the Middle East falling apart. We don't want Israel and Iran to come to heads, because what Iran would love is just drive a super highway through Syria and come out the other end. And what we don't want is a repeat of what we saw a couple of years ago, which is to have a huge, humanitarian on steroid throw all these millions of refugees into Western Europe and destabilize that again. So we don't want those things to happen. So we should come out of Syria. But the question is, how do we come? We need to come out in a way that those problems don't come back and bite us.
Okay, so what you just said, which I think reflects the view of a lot of people here, it's not just you for sure, but undergirding it are two assumptions. One, that we have an obligation to defend all the countries that you mentioned. I'm not sure where that obligation comes from. And two, that our presence is inherently stabilizing rather than destabilizing, and I don't see any evidence of that.
Oh, absolutely. I think right now what we've done is we've created a wedge that keeps all those problems from spinning out of control. Right? The Syrians are not excavating masses of millions of people and sending them on the road. Israel and Iran aren't shooting at each other, and Jordan's holding together. Jordan's kind of a keystone state that really helps keep the region together, and Iraq's holding together. So, and ISIS was utterly crushed really in record time. So those are real accomplishments.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
But we are also in a position to be held hostage because we do have 2,000 troops there.
Right.
One of them whom was just killed the other day.
Right.
Got no press coverage here at all. I wonder how his family feels about that. Made me sad to read it. And we've killed about 200 Russians there.
Right.
We killed 200 Russians.
Right.
Why in the world would we ever want to be involved in anything like that?
Well,
why
we
does
don't
that
want
make
to.
America safer?
Right, we don't want to. But what we want is a region that doesn't fall apart and creates bigger problems for us. So that's the only issue, which is you want a policy that doesn't do what Barack Obama did, which is say, declare victory and walk away, and then what happens is all the problems pour back in, and you actually have a bigger problem than when you started. You know, if you remember, I mean...
So do you think that Obama not being engaged in the regions was the reason there was a Syrian civil war?
No, but because the way we pulled our troops out of Iraq and when we did, and the way we laid the politics to unravel in Iraq, that allowed the problem of Syria to spill over and destabilize Iraq and created a caliphate, which then in turn attracted tens of thousands of foreign fighters from all over the world to the region. And now we're worried about all these tens of thousands of foreign fighters.
Why, can you remind me really quick why I should think Assad is bad? I mean, why I have a moral obligation to be against Assad? Why are we supposed to? I mean, I'm not for Assad. I don't really care.
Assad, let's be clear. Assad is a bad genocidal dictator. Do we care? Is that our problem? I actually don't think so, no. What we care about is our interests, right?
You don't think we're being used at all? I mean, the whole Gulf would like us to get deeply involved in this because they're worried about Iran. And we seem to be doing their bidding here a little bit.
Well, I mean, I think, for example, the way this administration did Iraq and rolled up ISIS, where we didn't put tens of thousands of troops back in. We put a modicum of force back in, and we had people on the ground really do that. And other people had to step up. And other people who were doing bad things kind of backed off. So I think there's a middle ground between doing nothing and walking away and letting the house burn down and, doing the next Vietnam War.
When Lindsey Graham says it's a disaster that we might pull,
well, then you should be suspicious because Lindsey Graham said that, right?
Well, that's, I mean, I just feel
wrong.
like 100% of the time, almost like on purpose, almost like if you want to know what time it is, ask him and it's the opposite time.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it makes no sense for the United States to be in Syria forever. Absolutely, totally with you. Love to walk away. How we walk away really matters.
Okay, now you're making me feel better. I will say that.
Thank
you.
All right.
Good to see you. Amazon has become so ubiquitous that even the Pentagon is dependent on them all of a sudden to store their classified data, your classified data. That story is next. It's part one of our week-long series, Tech Tyranny, and it's interesting. Stay tuned.